Well, good morning, Liberal Kansas, Southwest Kansas, the Oklahoma Panhandle, and all other places where you tune in to get your news and views from the middle of America. This is Earl with the Leader in Times on,
Oops.
Oops, I didn't change yet. I'm going to fix that right now.
How you
on
spell that?
Friday. Let me get that. Friday, November 7th.
We're going to get there.
There we go.
Hang on.
There we go. Friday, November 7th, 2025. Joining me as always, Jim Rice, and it is game day in Liberal. The Redskins host Salina South tonight in the regional. It's the second round of the playoffs, and getting to host it at home, that's a good thing. Don't have to drive.
Good thing we're doing it tonight, because tomorrow night and the next night might be a little rough.
Yeah. Well, tonight, I wish it was last night. Last night was nice.
That was great, wasn't it? That was really nice.
It would have been, but that's not the way it works.
No, you gotta have a football game when it's about sub-zero somewhere.
Yeah. I'll have my big jacket on, that's for sure.
Yep.
Did you know this thing going on last night? Denver Broncos played played the Las Vegas Raiders, and it's on Amazon Prime. But there's a deal going on right now between YouTube TV and ESPN, and so if you're a YouTube subscriber like I am, you're not getting any ESPN right now, or ABC, because they're both owned by Disney. And I'm a little ticked at both companies right now.
Well, I kind of looked around a little bit on mine, and I couldn't find anything, and I thought, well, they're doing something. I guess they don't want anybody to see it.
Yeah, the Thursday night games are on Amazon Prime. Yeah. But if you get Amazon shipping and stuff, I think you can get that for free.
Oh yeah, I ordered something off of it the other day, and it took me 30 extra minutes just to. I don't want that. Well, it's only $14.99 a month. I don't want it. What is there you don't understand about it? I do not want that. And anyway, but I went ahead and ordered what I needed to order, and finally it came the other day. But I don't know, I still got to check and see if they signed me up anyway. I mean, I just want to order something. That's all I wanted to do. I don't want to sign up for a credit card or nothing else. Just leave me alone.
We have Amazon Business here, and I got to say, if you do have to order something, shipping is amazingly fast.
It come in about, I don't know, couple, maybe 3 days, and I had it. What was that stuff for those molds that I did? Yeah, that worked out slick. After I finally figured out what to pour in there, I finally started using fiberglass, and that worked really good. But anyway, I just wanted to order what I wanted to order, and no hassle. But that ain't the way it turned out. As a matter of fact, I think I got aggravated the first time and went away, and then came back later and did it again.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I couldn't find a football game, so I thought, well, it is what it is.
We're still working on your behalf on doing the best that we can with what legal remedies there are available to try to address this situation. Just want you to know that those are ongoing. Also, that we're working on your behalf on, what authority does a commission have when they sign off on things. You were the chair in the past. Before you could sign any document, did you have to have some authority to sign that document?
You bet.
You couldn't just as chair just start signing stuff?
No. I mean, all of the commissioners have to be aware of it and agree to it. Or at least a majority of them. Most generally, everybody agreed, but, I don't recall any document that I ever signed without my fellow commissioners knowing about it, voting on it, that kind of thing. But, so, it's, and that's what they're there for. I mean, it takes a majority to do things, and so they should be very aware of it and hold a vote and say yeah or yes or no. So, yep.
Yeah, the powers of the chairman are not much different than any other commissioner.
The powers of the chairman are to run the meeting in a business-like order.
Yeah.
And that's it.
That's pretty much the statutes and the county charter if they're going to give that person any other responsibilities, it would fall in the county charter. But there's never a circumstance where the chairman, without permission of his board, could commit the entire county to anything that by signature without that they voted to do that.
Yeah.
Even if it's to receive a gift. If someone wants to give the county a gift, they have to vote to receive that gift.
Well, same way with, selling a piece of property. They had to vote to,
He couldn't
do
just
that.
sign off to sell that property.
No.
And if there's you talk about some of this money that comes from other government agencies, there's usually strings.
Oh, there's lots of strings.
And so you can't accept even money from other parts of the government.
Some of it you
Without
don't
a
want to accept
Yeah.
because of the strings.
Well, and one of those is like Medicaid money to the state of Kansas. They did not accept that money intentionally. Now the governor, if the governor had the power on her own, she would have signed off and done that.
She would do that in a heartbeat.
But she can't, nor can a chairman just sign off to receive anything or accept anything on behalf of the county without an underlying action, which is a vote, or if the charter says on certain issues that the chairman can do things. And
that's reflected in the minutes.
Yep.
They voted to do this or they denied that.
right. So if you have minutes and no vote was ever taken, but a signature was given, I believe that's a no-no. What we would refer to as a no-no, maybe a significant no-no.
Yeah. Well, it's just a documentation of the record. They voted to do this or they denied that. And that way you can always look back, years if you need to, and say, well, here's where they voted. I remember, I was on the fair board. There was a lot of that stuff, and that's been clear back in the 80s, but there was a lot of that because there's history behind all of that stuff out there, where that land came from, that 40 acres, and how it was intended to be used, no different than Light Park up here with the city. There are strings attached. There's certain things that you can do with it, and certain things that it wasn't designed to do. And, that's your record of how things are to proceed from, the time the land was given or whatever it might have been from the vote you took to do something. That's your record going forward that, a majority of the commissioners voted in favor or denied, the process, whatever it was.
Right. And the other reason that's important is because it's done out in the open.
Yeah.
So even you can say, hey, wait, why did we accept that? Or why didn't we accept that?
Yeah.
There was an agency years ago that was sending out financial gifts because they wanted to be able to say, all these people support us. It's Planned Parenthood. And some, without knowing, voted, just accepted that gift. And some said, hey, wait, we don't want to take money from Planned Parenthood. Then they say, we've taken money, donations from Planned Parenthood.
Sure.
That won't look good for us.
Well, they can kind of use that to blackmail you.
So some didn't do it. But in any event, whether it's a good thing or not, that's not what's important. What's important is, did we follow procedure?
Yeah.
Was the public aware that we were accepting certain monies or gifts or grants or whatever you want to call them, and so it was done in the public. It wasn't a signature done back room, and no one knows why or how or what that's used for. Is that used for services? Do we have to match any of that? Are we okay with matching that? If we don't have to match it, what are the requirements? If we don't follow the requirements, how would we pay it back? There's all kinds of things of why everything has to be done in the open. And you can't do actions, just signing documents in the back room without what's called an underlying action or underlying permission that says, okay, Jim, Chairman Rice, we're going to accept this, and you sign that on our behalf because we've got a vote that says we've accepted this.
Yep.
No vote, No signature.
Yeah. Yep.
That's the way it's supposed to work. And so we're working on that on your behalf. And you may say, what's going on? We ask those same questions, but you know, all we're trying to do is make sure that you are aware of what's being done and that it's done in the open. There is just no authority for one commissioner to act on their own to make an agreement. Now let's say, for example, you remember on here we've talked several times about why wouldn't a commissioner just go talk to Conestoga? Talking to someone is not a binding agreement.
It's not against the law.
No. You can go talk to anyone, you know, and then you bring it to the commission to see what they would like to do. I remember years ago, you remember when Hurricane Katrina wrecked New Orleans?
Mm-hmm.
We had a local city commissioner suggest, at that time, the Tremobile building was empty. And that commissioner suggested that maybe we use that for refugees to come up here and be able to have a place to stay if their houses were wiped out. Now, he can make that recommendation, but he can't offer that to them without action of the city commission. And when some others heard that, they said, absolutely not. We're not doing that. We can't do that. We couldn't handle that and the expense of all of that and bringing people here. We can't commit the people of town to that. But he could say, hey, I can throw this idea out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was soundly thumped, but you can talk to anybody. But you can't sign something that binds the county or anybody else. That's out. That's beyond what any individual commissioner can do, whether you're the chair or anyone else. You can't sign documents that commits us or accepts money or spends money. How can the public know what's going on if you're doing that without it ever coming into public light?
How can the rest of your commissioners know what's going on?
Yeah.
You know, if you don't bring that to them.
And I think lately people have learned a lot about some of these documents and whether or not they allow bonuses or why it couldn't be used to increase hours instead of just handing out checks. And I'm not saying either side of that argument's right or wrong, but we should have that conversation publicly. And if the commission says, well, if we're going to use this, I recommend we use it in this way. Or, hey, we've had some public feedback, but you haven't had public feedback because a lot of the public wasn't aware this money was coming in. A lot of the money, people weren't aware it was being used for bonuses. And a lot of people are like, when did this conversation take place? Why is this coming out now? Because citizens are engaging and researching and finding these things out.
Well, I've learned quite a bit. I thought, I was kind of up to date, but I've learned quite a bit just watching and listening to, some of this research and development that's been going on. And, it's been quite interesting for me. I don't know about the rest of you, but, I've actually been on the county commission for a few years and, felt pretty comfortable in knowing what I knew, but, there's some things that come up here. It's like, wow, but I don't know that, I don't recall a time that we ever refused to talk to somebody, or listen to somebody and then act accordingly. I just don't remember that.
Or sign.
And I'll grant you there were some radicals that came in from time to time, but I remember one in particular, but anyway, that transparency deal, there's more to it than just, saying it. It's also doing it.
Yeah, and again, if there's hundreds of thousands of dollars at stake, shouldn't the public be aware before?
Well, it's their money. Yeah.
And when are they going to be made aware?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. Tax statements is going out now, so I
Yeah.
did have somebody tell me yesterday that they got theirs and it was up $1,300 on their house. I thought, ooh, that kind of scared me.
Yeah. Well, we're doing the best we can to try to mitigate some of it that we believe did not happen appropriately. It's not just we're unhappy about the amount, it's there's a process.
Yeah.
And
Well,
we
and
believe
there's-
that process wasn't followed.
There's slim to no explanation. You know, well, it's this, well, it's that, well, it's part of this, well, it's that. You know, well, what is it? I mean, what really is the reason for the, you know, the 13.5 mil increase or 14, whatever the number is? See, that number even keeps changing. I mean, I don't know. But there's apparently no attempt to resolve it. Anyway, there wasn't up to a couple of days ago. Now, I don't know whether a phone call's been made, you know, in the last couple of days or not, but I mean, there was your opportunity to jump on that right then and there. Tom Willis, give his phone number out. Call him up. Say, hey. But I don't know whether that's phone call's been made or not. I seriously doubt it, or we'd have heard about it by now.
Yeah. Well, other correspondence I have is I wouldn't expect anything quickly. I would say this is what, you know, dealing with the county commission chairman. A county commission chair does not have individual powers, as the authority lies with the entire board of county commissioners. The board acts as both the executive and legislative body, with the chair presiding over board meetings to facilitate its collective decisions on matters such as the annual budget, county finances, land use, and contracts. The chair's role is to lead the board in exercising these powers, not to act independently. So contracts, county finances, all of these things, they'll facilitate the discussion, but they have no authority to act on behalf of the whole without permission of the whole. It's just that simple.
Yeah. Well, you know, way back in 4-H days when I was about 13, 14, 15 years old, and, you know, 4-H model meetings, which was how to run a meeting, you know, we did that. There were, I think we'd go into the old high school up here. I mean, we're talking the real old high school up here, you know, and hold those model meetings, and there were several 4-H clubs in the county at that time, and it was a contest, you know, but you learned how to, you know, call a meeting to order, you know, and all of that stuff, how to make a motion, you know, how to, you know, table a motion, you know, all of that stuff. Learned, you know, all the procedures, and, you know, that hasn't changed. It's the same today as it was 60 years ago or 70.
And so you say, well, why are you bringing this up? What's at issue? Well, we have documents with signatures on them. We have no evidence of votes because we have gotten we've double checked all the meeting minutes, all the meeting transcripts. No votes were ever taken publicly to allow those signatures. And now we're just validating, verifying that any policy at all that would exist that would allow a chair to have this unwieldy power to just sign things without permission is all we're waiting on. Because this is government in the dark. This is when they're doing things and not doing it in front of you, not letting you know what they're doing, not letting you know what they're signing up for, not letting you know that kind of thing. So we expect the two things we watch over here more than anything, the Kansas Open Records Act and the Kansas Open Meetings Act. Government has to happen in the light. And if it's happening in the dark or happening without any knowledge to the public of what's taking place, and that they didn't discuss it openly, and that they didn't give permission to sign up for, I don't care what program it is, if they didn't do it out in the open, it violates the law.
Well, if it's not reflected in the minutes, there's a pretty good chance that it wasn't done out in the open.
Yeah.
I mean, that's your record. That's the evidence right there that they voted to do something or not to do something. And if you can't find that, you know, I guess you could call it the documentation, the backup for that, where that motion was made, and sometimes they don't even get a second, but that will be reflected in the minutes. You know that, you know, the motion made by such and such failed, you know, to get a second, and then you move on. You know, but all of that stuff should be reflected in the minutes. And if it's not, I mean, you're out of luck.
Previous opinions on the role of the chair, of what the chair can and cannot do. A commissioner, including the chair, has no more legal authority than a private citizen when acting alone.
That's for sure.
They're just like you and me on their own.
That's right.
All decisions must be made during official, collective meetings of the board. All decisions.
Only time they have any authority is when the commission is in session.
The chair presides over these meetings to guide the board in its decision-making process. That's it. All they are is a chair during the discussions. Then they can vote. They can make a motion. They can second it. They're not limited either by being chair. They're still a member of the five, and they can act as the five. But they cannot act as one and have any authority as one to sign anything without permission of the whole. There's just no situation that allows that. But we're giving them an opportunity to provide, if they have any evidence, anything at all, that would allow a signature, binding a contractual signature to request funds, to fill out a grant form request, and or anything, and hundreds of thousands of dollars at stake, that they cannot do that unless there's an underlying action to support it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty simple and pretty easy.
So we're working on that for you. I mean, we just try to make sure things are done in the open. And if we can help make that happen, that's what we're going to do, because government should happen in the open.
Well, all this makes for better government, you know, and more efficient government, I might say. You know, and right now I don't know that we've got more efficient government. You know, when you look at that attorney bill, you know, I don't know what it's getting close to now, but here a while back it was $521,000. And that's in addition to what they paid the county council, I think.
And I believe the effort is to just elongate this out.
Yeah.
That they just say, well, we couldn't make deadlines and this and that. That's already happened. But even yesterday we ran the story of the Conestoga offer to say, we're not going to expect it all at once. Let's sit down and talk about something of how the payback could happen. Or, you know, if there's going to be one at all, they've already taken out of your pocket $2.5 million, or they will have once January rolls around, $2.5 million. And I'm not so sure, by the way this settlement goes, that may not be close to what is needed. Remember, 5.9, where the county tried to extort that out of you, was considered the and that's my personal view of that, was to get that out of you was the worst case scenario. Well, it's not going to be the worst case scenario. Never will be. So if it's middle of the road, we could already have the money in the bank for that.
Well, how
even though it shouldn't be done the way that they did it.
Yeah, how come we had to be the ones to find that out, that they're willing to string that out? I mean, I heard that long before Mr. Willis and Mr. Hatcher came in here and said that to you on camera. I heard that a couple of 3 times long before that we're willing to settle, you know, let's just get together and talk. You know, so I don't know why we had to be the one if the commissioners didn't know that. You know, where were they? But, you know, the problem was they won't talk. They don't want to talk to, they don't want to, apparently don't want to settle it. They're waiting on the attorneys to settle it, or I don't know what the deal is.
They're waiting on a judgment now.
Yeah.
I mean, there is
yeah.
there is no, at this
Yeah.
point, we're beyond where we can settle on what the valuation will be. I mean, I don't think we are. They could do that at any time. I just don't see that happening now because they're so
No.
far into this case.
No.
But what they can still negotiate is the payback.
Yeah.
That's what could be done. So I just want to be fair to Scott Carr. I did get a response from him yesterday when I asked the two last questions I asked him. I asked him on Wednesday about the half-cent sales tax failing. Do you want to make a statement, or who do you want us to contact? Then I asked yesterday, I said, with Conestoga willing to spread the payback over time, do you want to make a comment? You can text, call, or email earl@liberalfirst.com. He said, Earl, your question about the sales tax not being passed and the Conestoga question will be addressed at the next Board of County Commission meeting on 11/17/25. I'm one of 5 commissioners, and there may be varying opinions. And it's true, but he's the chairman, and that's who else are we supposed to contact for a statement other than the chair?
That's the guy.
How many
That's
times
the guy.
did a reporter approach you to talk about something that happened at the county to make a statement?
Oh, I don't know. You know, that's been so long ago I don't remember. But you know, I mean, but I think he's right. I think there might be varying opinions, and of why the sales tax passed or didn't pass. I think we passed around our own opinions here. But concerning the getting together and talking, I think there might be some varying opinions of why they will or they won't. So I guess at the next meeting we'll find out. But good for you, Scott.
Yeah, but out of deference to the chair, we gave the chair the opportunity to make a statement.
Yeah, and it was easy.
Or to appoint someone else if they wanted someone else to make a statement.
Yeah.
And that would have been fine. But, it's just the most bizarre. If something's happening at the city and I call the mayor, whether that mayor was Jeff Parsons, whether that mayor was Joe DeNoyer, whether that mayor was Jose Lara, over the years, different people, whether whoever was the mayor, if we called and contact them, say, what are your thoughts about this vote or about that? What were you thinking? They gave a statement.
Yeah.
I mean, I would think the public would want to know what the position of their leaders would be, and it's like the only way you interact with this commission is when they meet. They meet for like an hour, hour and a half, and they're gone.
Yeah.
And that's when that time isn't supposed to be for public education. That is to perform the duties in front of the public. This is what we're doing. And if you say, well, we want to inform the public, well, that happens beforehand. And the public shows up at the meeting, and all I can say is, anytime I've seen in with this commission, the public showed up, there's been not one accommodation to the public concern. Anyone who's brought something to this commission, I have not seen where they have modified their position based on the concern of a citizen that came and shared data or came and asked questions. Am I missing something here?
Well, I don't recall ever hearing. Well, we'll look into that. Maybe they did. But I don't ever remember that.
No, what Fuller says is, we'll have answers for you. The staff is going to tell you the answer, and then you're going to live with it. That's not leadership. That is to say, staff, did you hear what the citizens said? We need to revisit what we're doing because the citizens have input in this discussion too. This is not a one-sided deal. But the staff will tell you. That's not what they're asking for. They're not asking the staff to tell them the answers. They're saying, we don't agree with what's happening, or we don't agree with this position you guys are taking. We need you to revisit this or take into consideration where the public's at. That is absolutely not happening. When you look at the R&R, the purpose of R&R was that they couldn't pass taxes without you being able to come and let them know what you thought about it. Because normal, reasonably minded people would say, okay, maybe we've gone a little bit too heavy on this. Even though we think it's needed, the public is not behind us on this. And if you don't have the public behind you, how are you really leading?
Well, I don't ever remember a time when I was on there. Usually, a couple of mil increase caused a big disturbance, about we don't want to do that. How are we going to do that? Let's revisit all of this stuff, And here we're talking about 13.5 mils. And, gosh, I can't imagine leaving that building knowing that I had just placed, a 13.5 mil increase on the public, on the property owners. I just, well, we'd have still been in session over there, I'll guarantee you, if that had ever come up before us, because it was awful hard just to allow 2 or 3, maybe 4 at the very most increase. And well, when that popped up, because that was always the target, is to leave it like it was, or hopefully reduce it a little bit. But along to come and do like a 13, I mean, that don't even seem possible to me. And then there's so much confusion about why the need for it. I mean, and I don't know, from what I've heard, they even the commissioners have a hard time explaining it. They certainly don't all agree. But I don't know, it's just a mess. And that's the only way I can describe it. It's a mess.
It was a 3-2 vote.
Yeah.
On that. But I'll say this, one thing that I've learned through this process, and I'm 54 and I can still be taught, and I'm still learning. And the one thing is, and I don't say this about all people who are in the pulpit or pastors, because I know some really good pastors that really have the ability to bring people together. But sometimes I think a pastor thinks that the congregation is to listen to the pastor, that this is not something we work on together. The pastor provides the message, and you and the people in the pulpit or in the pews just follow wherever they say to go. And that there's some ordination of authority, and that is not how the early church worked or anything like that, and it's not how we work it today. And that certainly doesn't play in the commission room. That's a totally different deal. That if you didn't listen in the church, you're certainly, going to have to listen in the die, because the people will demand it.
Sure.
And I've never seen this. Look, we have the answers. If you have concerns, we just need to explain to you why you're wrong. No, that's not how this works. No, they have concerns because they have budgets to make too. They have bills to pay too. They have questions about, was this the only way we could have solved this issue, was to collect up taxes? Did we talk with them? Have we met with them? Have we discussed options with them? That's what we call due diligence in the business world. Did you do your due diligence before you came up with that solution? And if you ask the public, do you think the public would say, oh, they did everything possible before they issued that tax increase? They listened to everybody. They took multiple input. And then you hear things like what Tammy said, well, you can come to the meetings. Those meetings are not, first of all, they're not time to be for the general public to come. People are working in the day and things like that. But that the public's supposed to come and make the recommendations to the county budget? Are you kidding me? The public is supposed to do that? Then why do we have commissioners? Let's put, look, I'll agree with you on this then, Tammy. Then let's just put the budget to a vote then. Why don't we put it on the ballot? If the public is the one who's supposed to think it through, come up with all the ideas, and come up with what it should be, then let's put it on the ballot.
That would work about as well as what's working now.
Yeah. So what we do is we're supposed to have people that go and balance the needs of what it costs to get the public the services it's asking for and what they can afford and what they see as responsible funding of government. They certainly don't believe this is. We believe it's illegal because they violated R&R. That's why there are complaints with the R&R Board of Tax Appeals because of the process was flawed. Information was flawed. The document we all received in the mail wasn't it might as well have been a joke. It was a joke. Why didn't they just say, let's just send out, if we know we're gonna exceed R&R, let's just say it's gonna be 100 mills, and when we only come in at 14, it'll look like we're heroes.
We could.
No. Yeah, that's insanity. But we'll make the case to the Board of Tax Appeals on that. But this idea, I mean, when you're electing people, I guess I've never thought about what position they've been before because I thought people would be reasonably minded. But do you think it's important moving forward when people are up for election on what they've done in the past and what kind of a record they have had?
Well, yeah, but I mean, you can't never tell. I mean, I don't know how you tell. You just have to look at past history. I mean, look at the governor of New York and his past history that now then that he's elected, everybody's looking into that. That should have been done before that, And it's, I think voter turnout often has a lot to do with that. And I don't know why that is. I was thinking this morning maybe we need I don't know, some kind of a law that if you're registered to vote and you don't go vote, then you're subject to a tax, an additional tax, and then that tax collected goes into the party to which you claim to be a member of. I don't know, but somehow we've got to get more than 13, 14, 15% of the registered voters out. I mean, that's the real problem. I mean, but I don't know how you make people care or get them to care. You just shouldn't have to make them. They should be, highly involved, and looking, because now look what we've got here. I mean, I don't think anybody, maybe including all of the commissioners, had any idea that we'd be facing a 14 mil increase, but now that we have it and it's in front of us, there's a lot of folks working to see what else can be done, which should have been done by the original designers of this thing. And to settle for something like that, it's like there had to be some different ways to do that.
That may be, but and Steve also has a concern about voter turnout. But let me tell both you guys, I don't want just anybody in there. If they don't know the issues and they're not paying attention, then they should stay home. I don't want that person showing up at the polls.
Well, maybe I'll take them off the voter roll then.
Yeah, they may have only got on the voter roll because they got their driver's license.
Well, that's true too. That's another problem.
And they said, hey, you want to fill out and register to vote? I guess. They have no intention of voting. And I want the people that are paying attention, that are listening to the radio, reading the paper, watching these forums, paying attention to what's happening at these meetings. That's who I want to go vote. Those are the people that would best understand what's happening. Now, everyone has a right to vote. But I can tell you in the past, when I've talked with people who said, this is how the vote went, they said, really? When was the election? I'm like, you didn't know there was an election?
Yeah, well, I've had
Did
that.
you notice all these signs around everywhere in town? That means there's an election coming up. Maybe you ought to pay attention a little bit. But I'm all for as much as we can get, but I want it to be an educated voter. Even my very liberal government teacher in college, Mr. Courtney, said on certain issues, he said, like, should they retain a judge? He said, if you don't know who those judges are, probably the best thing you can do is not vote, so that people who would be aware if there were any issues with that would be able to make the decision on whether or not to retain a judge or not. We're going to fix that next year when we make voting for Supreme Court justices on the ballot rather than appointed by a select few in the whole state. And when I say a select few, I mean 7 people making that decision. It should be you making that decision. And I'm for elections. I want things to go to the public all the time. Let's put it on the ballot.
Yeah.
I'm all for putting things on the ballot. But if you didn't vote, then you can't complain. That's true. But also, we need to make sure that the people getting out to the polls know what they're voting on. What did B tell us? When he was a poll worker and they would come in and turn in their stuff. I thought I'd see B the other day, but he wasn't there. But he said they didn't know what was on the ballot. They didn't know what was going to be on the ballot.
They just knew a name,
Yeah.
seen a sign or something, heard a name.
Yeah. We have got to do a better job of informing ourselves before we go to the ballot. Steve also said that except for Todd and Steve's, sometimes everything is a big secret. It should not be this way. This is public, funded by the public tax dollars. It all should be out in the open. And when the people ask questions, they are treated as the enemy. I just don't get it. Now you've seen a recent effort, I think, for example, in dealing with Carolyn Huddleston, who's done an outstanding job of collecting up public information. You've seen where they've tried to go out of their way to say, we appreciate her coming in and getting the information and this and that. But notice it's all about coming in. In other words, I believe, so we can propagandize and make our case instead of let the data stand for itself. Now, if it needs clarification, answer their questions. But they seem to make it very difficult to want to answer questions unless you come in and they get to propagandize to you. You know, it's just like the data is the data. Either a cut cuts money or it doesn't. In my view, unless it cuts money, which means less this year than last year, it's not a cut.
No, that's pretty much right. That's why the old math used to work anyway.
Yeah, and if there's something that a chairman can sign, either they can or they can't. The policy either says yes or no. And I've just read to you several times, the chairman is no different than anybody else, other than that he just regulates how the discussion goes. And then they appoint him at the end, okay, we approved this, we voted this, now you can sign that for us. You can sign that for us. You know, on some documents, even when they vote no, they still sign it. All 5 commissioners sign off on the budget and things like that. Even if they voted yes and voted no, it's a record, it's part of the record. You can always look it up, who voted yes and who voted no.
Yep.
And it's there. But, you know, I agree with you, Steve, that one thing I've heard several times by staff and even some commissioners is, we're transparent. We're transparent. That's a great catchword if it's true.
Well, then why is all this digging?
Revealing what it's revealing.
Yeah.
And why didn't you know about that? You know, what does transparent mean? To them, I think it's, you'll know what we want you to know. And I know some people think that information is currency. Like as if they're more valuable because they have some information somebody else doesn't have. That's garbage. You know, I feel like when I was not the publisher and I was brought in for my reviews, they said, okay, Earl, what's your goals for the next year? I said, to render myself extinct. I said, what do you mean? I said, well, I have to answer this person's issue and that person. I want to train them so I don't have to come over and do that for them. And if I can teach everybody what they need to do and how they need to do it, then I'll make myself extinct. And that is success because I will have allowed them to be more effective at what they do. I didn't say, well, I'll just keep helping people because they need me so badly because they can't. No, that's ridiculous. Pass on what you know and teach people and give them the tools. Let them see how to solve the issue. Let them see how to work the program. Let them see how the process works. Not this, I have some information that nobody else has, and so I'm going to hold on to that. Or that makes me somehow elite to somebody else. No. It's just not right. So if you think the outrage was before, now people are going to actually see it in real time, right? They're going to actually get that statement, and they're going to see what this true
Yeah.
effect has been.
Yeah. Yeah. We just weren't projecting something that, you know, it's coming. It's headed your way if you haven't got it yet. Some of them, I think quite a few of them's already been mailed out, as I understand it. So,
I like what Steve says here. He says there will be a lot of people in shock when they get their tax statements. I can hear it now. How or when did this happen?
mm-hmm.
And if you thought you had activists before, wait till
Yeah.
you see what happens now when the
Yeah.
rubber meets the road. And we
Yeah.
tried to do anything we can to have them reconsider this before. And you saw the resistance, you saw the delay tactics, you saw that. They had plenty of time when Todd said we should revisit this, and they berated, Tammy did, why are you even here? We're supposed to be a team. It's like,
He's there because they elected him.
yeah.
That's how come. Just
Yeah.
like her. Why is she there? Because she got elected.
He's there to look out for the people of this county.
Yeah. Not just his district, but the entire county. I mean, that's what I never did think about. Just, even though I was elected by a certain, district, I never crossed my mind that anything I did was just, I was supposed to represent my district only, because any vote that you take affects the entire county. And, and I don't know, I think most everybody looks at it that way. Once you get there, you're elected by a district, but then you represent all 5 districts. And, if somebody comes to talk to you, it doesn't have to be somebody from your district. It can be somebody from, another district. It could, maybe be somebody from Oklahoma that says, hey, did you guys ever think about doing this? Well, that might be worth considering. We'll think about that. So, but your decisions are made off of a collective number of ideas and suggestions, and how's this going to work? And, and I think that's, where we're at right now is a lot of people are asking, how is this going to work, this $13.5 million increase? How is that going to work? How's that going to affect me? How am I going to buy groceries? If you get, if you've got a mortgage in particular, your mortgage company is going to bump that up, and my concern is when's this going to come off? When is it going to come off? I mean, how many times did you ever see a tax increase last for, 6 months or a year? Once it's on there, it's on there. So I just, it makes me pretty nervous to think that, we're going to start working on it in January, February. You should have already worked on it.
Yeah. Well, and that's why we are going to work our tails off with making our case, because if actions like this are allowed to take place, anyone across the state can mislead their public and give them false information and get away with it. And no matter how much they delay it or try to slow it down, we're gonna push for that. What about the roads? There was a vote that affected whether or not you were going to have to pay another $2.5 million a year for the next 10 years on roads. That vote failed. What's going to be the effect of that? We're going to discuss that right after this.
Our loved ones leave an impression on us, and it's important to make sure their lasting impression honors the life they led. Since 1956, the Jones family has been providing lasting legacies to the lives of our loved ones, and that torch has now been passed to the Creekmore family. The commitment to compassion continues by offering the largest inventory in stock in the region with in-house custom craftsmanship that makes sure each piece is as unique as the life it represents. With a combined 82 years of experience and professional designers on staff, Jones Monument continues to provide affordable pricing and convenient turnaround times. They are ready to serve you from 9:30 to 5 Monday through Friday and 9:30 to noon on Saturday. Yes, our loved ones may have passed, but the memorial left behind stands as a testament to our never-ending love. The staff at Jones Monument understands that, and that's why providing monuments is more than a sideline at Jones Monument. That's all they do. Visit Jones Monument when you're ready to make an impression beyond a lifetime.
Fall off the bone ribs dripping with our signature barbecue sauce. Tender pulled pork and brisket smoked to perfection. All served with family recipe home-style sides. It's all waiting for you at the Brick House Barbecue and Brew. Open 7 days a week, your barbecue appetite can be satisfied anytime for lunch or dinner. Brick House serves full dinners, combos, sandwiches, and take-home packs. Enjoy a variety of brews on tap or a mixed drink. Shaken, not stirred. Give your taste buds a treat at Brick House Barbecue and Brew, 24 East 2nd Street in Liberal. Like us on Facebook and see our full menu at brickhouselk.com.
So the vote on Tuesday included whether or not you wanted to spend another $2.5 million a year for 10 years on road maintenance out in the county and road repair. You saw the plan on what they were going to do. Oh, wait a minute. No, you didn't.
I was going to say, you must have been looking at a different book.
Because there wasn't one. And what I'm amazed is that 26% still voted for it without anything. And I started to say, well, how many people would benefit from it? You know, how many, you know, I'm pretty sure that maybe some of these people are rural that voted for that. But you had to be responsible for keeping the roads up out there and that kind of thing. What's your thoughts on that went down 74%? Basically 3-1 said no. We're not spending another $2.5 million, and you're not going to up our sales tax to do it.
Well, you know, I think there was a couple of issues. One is this mess that we're in with the Conestoga and the taxes, and then number two is that there really wasn't a plan. There wasn't, you know, public meetings going out and explaining what that money was going to be used for. You know, and you know, if you want to do something, you have to mount a campaign, you know, and convince the public, like we've done on many issues. Some have failed and some have not, but if you look at the successful ones, they've went out and got the public involved. As here's what we're going to do, and this is what your money's going to be used for, and you sell that. And that wasn't done. It's just, well, it's on the ballot and we need the money and it's for roads, and but what kind of roads, you know, or where? Or, I mean, that's, you know, it's kind of like the state highway. You know, I mean, they have a plan. We might not like the plan, but you can look. You know, I mean, the governor announced the other day that, I don't remember what it was, $44 million for different projects. You know, that they're going to use our money to do. The sad part of it was that Stewart County wasn't included in any of that, I don't think. But anyway, you have to figure out a plan. You know, and they just didn't come up after that. You know, that money became available. They knew in advance, probably 10, 12 years ago. You know, KDOT did, that what they were going to do when that money became available. And they knew the roads, and we did not have a plan like that, which is sad, because I agree there's some roads that need some serious improvement. But as we don't have that, we're back to operating as normal. You know, the funds to keep the roads up are going to come out of the current budget. You know, and they have to do the best they can do. You know, whether it's crack sealing or overlays or, maintaining the roads and I think that that little experiment, if that's what you want to call it, out east of town on Road O has been rather successful, but it would have been really easy to say, okay, here's the roads and here's what we want to do to them, and here's how we're going to use that money. Lay it out, whether it was asphalt or whether it was, building additional shoulders on the road or, mowing or, all kinds of things with the roads, but there wasn't anything. It's just throw it out there and we'll see what happens. And that's, I think that's the reason it failed, because nobody really knew what that money was going for. And those that voted for it were hoping that, that maybe that road running in front of their house out there, and maybe it might get a little improvement, but there wasn't any assurance of that. And so without a plan, we see the results of that. So, but it'll, the roads are not going to completely deteriorate. There are funds available. It might not be as much as they were hoping for, but there will be, there'll be maintenance, there'll be grading, there'll be, whatever it takes. I guess one of the saving things is that we don't have that many bridges, to care for. Because believe me, some of those counties back east, when you got 150, 200, 300, 400, 500 bridges, that's my goodness, you can look at their budgets. Ours would be pocket change compared to what some of those are, but anyway, it's
There is some benefits of being on flat land.
That's right. Yeah, and no rain. That's right. But anyway, I think we'll continue, and it's a struggle. It was a struggle when I was on there. About how many miles can we do and all. But we had a pretty good plan. I think it was laid out before the commissioners. We can do this many mile. And we'd put it out for bid and see who could do it and at what price, and that's what we did. But we only went as far as the money could go. When the money was out, that was the end of the project right there. If it was 3 mile or 23 mile, or whatever it was. When the money run out, that was the end of it.
Well, I do like this comment by Steve. He says, one-way glass is transparent from the inside out. So I guess being on the inside and looking out at the public is their form of transparent. But seeing in, you can't see in. That's a one-way glass. Well, I know we're joking about it, but it's really not funny. It's sad that we've gotten to this point. And on the roads, I don't doubt that there needs to be some maintenance to the roads. But you can't this is just an example of they don't present anything to the public they just say, well, we have this issue, so you just pay for it. Yeah. Well, tell me about the issue. Show me the issue. I've shown you where I tried to go out and have someone take me out and let's look at the roads.
Yeah. Yep.
And that never followed up.
Well, I used to go out and, the road foreman would come by and get in. Let's go. I want to show you something. And we'd go look. Yeah, that's something we need to kind of take some consideration about. I remember one time, and I don't remember whether I told that story or not, but I remember one time Tony Herman, back when he was road foreman, he'd probably be embarrassed if I tell you this, but anyway, it had rained a little bit the night before, and we were going to Dodge City, I think, to some kind of a KDOT meeting or something. And so he came by and picked me up, and we headed north and got up North House there about a mile, and they dumped some cleachy stuff on the road. And we was cycling down the road and got into that, and that pickup turned sideways, just slick. And by the time we got back, after Tony got on the radio, headed to Dodge City, telling them to get the gravel trucks rolling. They pretty much had that road fixed and covered in gravel, But anyway, that was just kind of a fun story. I always remember that. And after he was sitting sideways, and he said, "Now what are we going to do?" I said, "I'd back out in that field and go out there because it's sandy and we can get around this and go on to Dodge, you know. But anyway, but yeah, we drove a lot of times, go out to see, you know, and that was as a commissioner. That wasn't only as a private citizen, but that was, you know, I remember one time, I think there was a couple or three of us maybe even went off up north, up Martini Road, you know, to look at some stuff. But, you know, I mean, and that way we could come back and those commissioners that weren't there, you know, we could explain, yeah, this really does need to, you know, take some pictures and show them what's up. And, you know, but there wasn't any of that done this time. It was just, we just need the money.
Well, one thing I've been told by some out in the county is, you know, the little culverts that go underneath the dirt roads when you're driving down so that
Yeah.
water will flow
Yeah.
in the ditches,
Yeah.
that a lot of those things are clogged.
Yeah.
Well, if they're clogged and the water gathers up, it's going to come up and over and wash out and cause more damage to the road.
Yep.
I mean, that's why you want that water to move, and I've heard that there's resistance to cleaning those out. Well, I mean, maintenance, that's where I think we got a new guy as the head of the road and bridge, and I think, you know, we ought to let that guy, or, you know, whoever it is, go out and do an assessment. Where are we at?
Yeah.
What are our needs? What's priority one? What's priority two? And come up with a plan.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not opposed to that if we have to do something, but I need a plan. Why is it so hard to say that a plan would be a good, that we need a plan? And when it was asked before, the only thing we got was roads are important. They're economic development. They provide safety. Of course, no one's asking you to go drive through the middle of someone's cornfield to get from here to there. We need roads. We understand that. I mean, it's gridded out. What, every mile there's a grid you can put over the county, and these roads go every mile?
Yeah, pretty much. There's a few that don't, but it's pretty much on every section line.
So, you know, that rhetoric that roads are important and we need roads doesn't tell me why we need to maintain our roads specifically.
Well, I mean, everybody knows you need a road. But how do you maintain it? You know,
Yeah.
That's or what do you intend to do with it? You know, you're just going to grade it up and leave it, or you're going to leave it like it is, or, you know, what? I mean, the plan. I think that's the reason folks didn't know, and they didn't support it, is because there didn't seem to be a plan for it.
Yeah.
So
And
I think plan ahead. And that failed because we didn't plan ahead.
yeah, and that's what we that's all we're looking for. And to adequately communicate that plan to the people beforehand. Don't say, okay, now we got the money, now let's come up with a plan. When we were looking at these schools, we had very detailed plans.
Yeah, I went to one or two of those. I didn't even have any kids in school.
To get
But
to
I
the
went to one or two of those.
127 million, you knew what you were going to get. 5 new schools, K through 5s, 6 through 8. This is what we're going to do. This is going to solve our overcrowding. These schools will be made that the public will be able to come in and utilize part of the buildings because they'll be designed specifically to allow that to happen. These school buildings will be able to have growth, as opposed to the ones we had where you just kind of had to.
Add on another trailer house.
Yeah, yeah. That's what we were doing for decades. But there was a plan, and the public supported it. Oh, so it's fun. It's kind of funny, these percentages. It was 76% in favor
There you go.
of the school.
Yeah.
But why? Look at how much work was done on the front end.
Yeah. Well, you sold the plan. You know, I mean, it was pretty simple. Once you went to one of those meetings, you began to understand. Oh, yeah, here, look at this. This is, you know,
And
the
I would
reason
say,
for it. And-
I would say even before selling the plan, the public developed the plan.
yeah.
Not some out-of-state company, not someone come in and tell us how to do it. The public gathered up in different places over and over and over, and it wasn't a select committee. It was the open door. Anybody could come in.
Well, that same thing happened, you know, with KDOT, I think. You know, they came here. You know, I mean, it's been several years ago when all this really started to begin, because we were kind of like the lost stepchild out here, and sometimes you wondered if KDOT even knew we were out here. But I remember about the first meeting that I attended was in Garden City at the new high school up there, and they gave everybody, you know, you got on the agenda and they gave you, you know, a certain amount of time to come up and talk about projects that you might, you know, think worthwhile in your county. And I brought up the, you know, the need for a turning lane out there on Sally Road. You know, there were others that had similar suggestions, but that's how KDOT developed a plan to, you know, their plan to do certain things. And it took a few years, but eventually we got that turning lane on, you know, off of northbound 83 onto Sally Road. You know, there was one on the west side, which was kind of crazy, or I don't know, I think it was more designed for as a passing lane for anybody that wanted to turn left. You could go around them, but anyway, there wasn't anything, you know, for turning on or off of 83 on the side of the road. But, you know, that was just a suggestion, and they built a plan around that. Okay, that looks like a good deal. You know, there were, I don't know, there were probably 20 people up there from Ford and Finney and Seward and Haskell and I don't know, all around, saying here's some things to look at. And KDOT took those back to Topeka, and they developed a plan and a design. You know, and then, you know, when the time came, you know, but that was all developed. It started from public input. And, you know, but if you don't have that public input first, then you end up in a situation like we're in here now. You're getting that public input, and it might be tough to take, but, you know, looking back, would you do the same thing again? I would hope not. You know, I mean, you might have been able to sell a 13 mil increase. I doubt it, but where's the plan? You know, I mean, everything starts with a plan involving the public and public input. It don't make any difference what it is. You know, and that hasn't been that hadn't been the plan. I don't think, is to involve the public. It's sad to say. And so when you do that, or when you don't allow it, I mean, it's, you know, you end up in situations like this.
So it's our hope that this commission or the next will formulate a plan. But I would say, where the public is right now, I do not think that they need to rush to ask this legislature next time, because they had to have special permission from the legislature to even put this on the ballot, because they're at their limit of how much sales tax they can even impose. So to ask for more requires a vote of the legislature, which they got. I would think our legislature right now should say, hey, your voters didn't want this. We're not going to just do it again. They didn't want it by 76%. You know, I think it needs to set for a year and let the voters decide who they want to be their leaders, and then let those leaders decide how what kind of a plan moving forward. Is that unreasonable?
No. Well, you know, and I mean, a different view of the budget, you know, perhaps, you know, this might sound strange and obnoxious, but, you know, hiring a CFO, you know.
You're crazy.
He might, well, I realize the reason I said what I did, but, you know, they might be able to find some extra dollars somewhere, you know, that a half-cent sales tax might not be necessary. Who knows? But I think, you know, golly, folks, I mean, what is wrong with getting a chief financial officer to help you manage your expenses and your incomes? What is wrong with that? Why why is the resistance so great that you won't even consider that? And, you know, but there could be a lot of changes for the better, you know.
Well, I'm looking at some research, and this may be coming out soon, that shows our county has overspent its budget, its revenues by millions of dollars over the last several years, and they're going to be down potentially to $80,000 in the bank at the end of 26 with this, with their continued spending.
That sounds like federal government.
If that's true, you know, and you're asking for this much money just to do roads, maybe you ought to look at what's our bigger issues. Maybe we need to see, you know, if we haven't pulled our government back in line to what it can actually be afforded to do. If we've overpaid that much, or they've taken revenue and burned up the reserves like that, it's not a revenue problem. That's a spending problem. And if they're not addressing spending, and we know they're not, because when they claim these cuts of positions and they're spending more money on staff than ever, that's not a cut. You can't just keep growing government and then and the money that was spent left there, you left them with reserves. They're about to run that out. What are you going to do when you run out of reserves?
Yeah. Well, you know, and then those reserves have greatly increased after you know the previous commission left. I mean, there's none of that previous commission over there anymore. But you know, those reserves all grew from, I think it was around $1 million. You know, I don't remember for sure, but they grew to like $7 or $8 million, and now then that's gone. You know, it it kind of reminds me of this federal government, and you know how we've grown a national debt to $39 trillion because of the disregard for considering balancing your expenses with your income. And eventually, I don't know when, but eventually that's going to catch up with us. And you know, what's going to happen then? You know, I don't know. I'm really concerned about that you know, the lack of concern for, you know, overspending. You know, and I look at Trump, you know, he's the bad guy, he's Hitler, he's this, he's that. But I think he realizes that we cannot continue on this trajectory with, you know, spending billions of dollars that we don't have. You know, and this SNAP program, you know, I mean, there's a judge that just yesterday or the day before said you're going to fully fund that by Friday. Well, I don't know what right a federal judge has to say anything, but Congress is the one that says yay or nay on expenses, on expenditures. And I don't know that there's $8 billion. $8 billion is what I understand is what it costs to run that program a month. And you know, if anything needed to be looked into on the federal level, it would be that program for fraud and, you know, other things. I mean, you know, when you're looking at $8 billion a month and going to a food program, you know, there's something seriously wrong there. I mean, well, I think I read the other day there where it was $190 a month per person. You know, an average. I mean, there's folks out here that don't have that, and they can't afford that kind of spending. But, you know, I think that's something that's got clear out of hand. So we need to take a look at that. But some federal judge comes along and says, no, you're going to do that. You're going to fund it no matter what. No questions asked, just give them their money. But that's how you get your expenses lined up with your incomes, is that you do an audit. You do an audit and see, you know, a forensic audit here in the county. Maybe that's necessary. Let's at least get a CFO and let's figure out why we have spent so much more than what was budgeted, why we depleted our reserves. I mean, I don't have any idea, but
I do.
we need some answers.
It's simple.
Well, yeah, you can
You
look.
keep spending.
Yeah.
You keep spending.
When the price goes up, you just buy it anyway.
You
Yeah.
aren't living. You're giving yourself so much budget authority that you don't have revenue to support it. You have to say, look, you can pass that budget. They could pass instead of a $40 million, they could pass an $80 million budget. But if they can't get the money to support it, and again, that's where the people say, this is what we can afford. I mean, that's what restrains the size of government, when they say, this is all we can bring in. Why are we still budgeting and spending? And I've heard Scott say, we can't keep using our reserves. And I agree with him on that. Where I disagree with him is he thinks you can tax your way and just bring in more money instead of saying, we're spending too much money.
Well, you can't do that. I mean, you're gonna tax people out of out of business here. I was looking this morning. Here's a similar deal that's happening. Let's see, where is that? It was about right here on the Daily Wire this morning. This is, could be happening right here. I don't know, but this is something that maybe is comparable. This is on the Daily Wire, and it said the Daily Wire reports escape from New York. Home demand explodes in Florida after Mamdani victory. A Florida real estate agent says that rumors are true. Wealthy New Yorkers are already fleeing the city in droves following the election of Mamdani to the office of mayor on Tuesday. Courtney Plitzer, I believe is the name, a Sotheby's International realty agent based in Palm Beach, Florida, described the phenomenon on her TikTok. I'm not going to lie, I did not think exactly this was going to happen. I thought this guy was going to win in New York City. I thought that our market was going to pick up, but I didn't think it was going to happen the next morning. She said in a clip, it's 3 or 4 o'clock. I've literally been on the phone since 7 a.m. nonstop, back-to-back calls. I had showing scheduled for listings that haven't had a showing in a month. And yeah, I was wrong because it literally turned on like a light bulb, literally blew off like a firecracker. And the post-socialist New York City political market is here on our shores in Palm Beach. So, when you elect folks that promise everything's free, who's going to pay for that? Only those taxpayers that can, pay that, and they're not going to pay that. They're leaving. And then what are you going to do? I don't know that that's happening here in town, but when that realtor told me the other day, I asked her if this had had any effect on the housing market, and she said definitely, for sure. So, a similar thing, maybe not on that scale, is happening right here. And folks are not buying houses. Folks are not moving here. I mean, that's what I would say, or they're not, trying to upgrade themselves because of the taxes, and well, it's just a little bit. It's just a one-time thing and all of that. Well, when that lady told me last night that her taxes had gone up $1,300, that's a long ways from the $100 per $100,000 house, because $1,300 is a lot of money. That's 13 times what we were told. And well, maybe not 13, but it's quite a dab. And yes, you can tax yourself right out of business. And I think we might be headed that way.
But this is why it's important that we define terms. Saying we cut out of the budget is not saying they saved you a plug nickel, because the budget is so high. They have so much authority. They never reach how much they give themselves authority, but they still overspend the revenue coming in.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot consistently budget.
No.
Why would you approve a budget? I've talked about it at our church. we budget to repair an air conditioner. We hope we never have to. We put it in the budget, and then we say we're going to need to raise this. But there's been times when I put together a budget at the church, and I said, you know, we're about $400, $500 short of the revenue we brought in last year. And I tell the congregation, look, this budget would spend $400 or $500 more than we brought in last year. So you know, we're either going to have to find a way to increase the revenue and giving, or you know, we're going to overspend the revenue coming in.
Yeah.
And people they said, I've had people come up and say, we'll take care of it. But you can't, short of donations, say it's responsible to keep spending money beyond the revenue. And the answer isn't to just double the revenue or add another couple of million to the revenue. The answer is you gotta say we have more government than we can afford. It's not saying we don't have good government. It's not saying the people aren't good. It's not saying the services aren't good. It's saying we just can't afford to do it at the level we're doing. Sometimes you just have to admit that.
That's right. And that's really hard to do. I'll guarantee you, it is tough to do. I've been there and done that. It's hard, but you know, it can be done.
There's no choice. They're going to run out of money.
Yeah. And I don't think we can borrow and, you know, just continue to add like the federal government does.
You can't.
You know, if you have to go for no fund warrants, they have to be paid back.
And that's for an unexpected
You know,
bill. That can't be to operate
yeah,
our
that's
regular
just,
budget.
Yeah, that's not operational.
No.
Nope.
You've got to fund your operational budget with real money and quit just burning through the reserves because you didn't get your way. So think about it. They got neutraled last year, remember?
Yeah.
But did their spending go down to say, hey, we're only going to be able to bring in this much, so we're going to have to, or did they say, well, we've got reserves, we can just use the reserves?
Yeah.
That's irresponsible leadership.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, what are you going to do next year? And what are you going to do when those reserves are gone? You're going to do what they did this year. Increase the levy 13 mil.
No,
You can't do that.
And I'm sure that's what staff would recommend. That's what the management would recommend. And no, you have to say, no, we are going to actually have to cut the size of government in this county.
What happens when the college starts doing that? When the school starts doing that? You know, when all of these other entities relying on your tax dollars, you know, have to start doing that. You know, right now we're just talking about, you know, the county. But what happens when they, you know, come to a point that, you know, I mean.
I don't think they are.
No, they're not, because they have responsible folks looking. They have CFO, by the way.
Yeah, that helps.
All of them, they have CFO, you know, and they look at all aspects of income, you know, and they work their tails off. I mean, you know, the college has that foundation out there, and they do a great job of fundraising. You know, they have that annual auction, you know, and big participation, but they have other ways of you know, of getting donations and contributions, you know, and that's what they do. But the county relies solely or mostly on your tax money. Granted, some grants are available, but you have to qualify. And then there's some that, you know, when you find out what the strings are, you don't want them because there are too many strings. You can hang yourself in them strings. But, you know, you just have to bite the bullet and say, okay, we hate to do this, but here's what we have to do. And it's not easy.
It's not. And you know, I know people say, you know, but, you know, why can't we just continue to grow and you know, if I've always said this, all of our government entities should reflect the private sector in every way possible. Every job should have an equivalent, say, well, why are we paying this much for a secretary? Well, this is what the average secretary makes in Seward County. Why are we paying this much for a machine operator? Well, this is what an average machine operator makes. And it should be even across the board. And that also means, and I know some of you are going to villainize me, and that's okay, It also means the benefits. If this is what the average person in Seward County has as benefits, this is what the average person working for Seward County should have as benefits. And that's just a reality. And you keep this year alone an additional $1.5 million in benefits alone, and we're going to spend ourselves broke? I mean, it's numbers I'm looking at, and I'm looking with another expert in the state of Kansas who has chosen to look into our situation, and it's not pretty. And this is a watchdog group, and they also have a team of economic people and legal people.
Pretty sharp folks.
And I'm going to be visiting with them next week, and I hope then maybe to bring them on here, but the research they've done is going to be devastating. Devastating
There you go.
to the budget. Unbelievable. And this unwillingness, and you hear it every time. You hear it every time any discussion is like, well, the staff is part of the staff is what that we can afford as a community. And I'm sorry about anyone else's bad luck, but you think there hasn't been bad luck out here in the private sector? You think it hasn't been tough out here?
It's going to be when you have to pay your taxes.
It's not.
And there's some of them that's not going to be able to pay them. I'll guarantee you. You compare, when it's all said and done, the delinquent tax roll this year compared to last year, and see how much that increases. I mean, I don't know, it's going to be a bunch. And then what do? You got that many more people that cannot afford to pay their taxes, or maybe just don't want to. I don't know. I mean, you can use the county for a finance tool, I guess, but most folks want to pay their taxes. But now then, we've thrown them into the position that some of them just can't. What about those on, relying on that Social Security check? I know several people, including me, that relies on that Social Security check. But, you don't get an increase. Well, you're going to get a big one. I think it's like 2.7% or something. But that's certainly not going to cover the increase that we're seeing coming in taxes. And so how are they going to do that? How are they going to pay that? I mean, those are all questions that should have been asked and resolved and thought about during this formulation of the budget, but I don't know that they were. It's just, well, that's the bottom line right there. That looks good to me. Let's go. No, you don't go. You stay there until you get it down to within reason, and maybe that was within reason, to them. But I just can't believe that.
It was because they didn't have the will to shrink the size of government to what we can afford. They did not have the will to do that.
Yeah.
Point blank. And yeah, if that means, I've heard them say, well, maybe we wouldn't be able to do your tags on days or whatever. Hey, I want to make it as convenient as possible, but for what we can afford.
Yeah.
What we can afford.
You won't have enough money left to buy that tag.
Well, they don't have enough money to pay those people. They're going to run out because of the inability of this commission to rein in spending, which they have not done. They can stand there and tell you they cut this and that. They said they cut $2 million from benefits and they put $1.5 million more into benefits. Tell me how that's a cut. They have no idea what they're doing. And well,
CFO.
yeah. I mean, when you see this data, and I'm going to be working with these folks, and these guys are big league, and when they share what they've got on Seward County, it's going to be crushing.
It's going to be very interesting because I know them folks.
And so, again, We're still working on this on your behalf. I don't get anything. What do I get out of this? I've got nothing but a headache and slandered and everything else.
Yeah, you got the bad time.
So, but it doesn't mean we're going to stop doing the work for you. We're going to keep working for you, and we're going to keep you informed, and we're going to keep it out in the open. That's the big thing. And we did that this week.
Yeah.
And thanks to Conestoga for coming out and
You
being
bet.
willing to
That
keep
was-
it out in the open.
That was great. I really appreciate those guys coming in, and I think, a lot of you did too. And they shed light on things that maybe had been in question for a while, but, I think, it was well said and well done by them.
What ticks
Showed
me
where
off
they stood.
is I tried to get the chairman in here to look at data, and he would not come. And now I'm looking at other places within the state, looking at it, and that's they're gonna, if they're not gonna listen to me or listen to you, they're gonna listen to somebody.
Yeah.
And when they've spent all your reserves down to nothing because they refuse to control spending, that they just we've got a budget, this is what it's cost, so you have to give us all the money we need. Well, you're going to have to then use less, like other businesses have had to do.
Well, this is kind of I guess a 75-25 vote when you look at all the other taxing entities. The college and the school and whoever it might be. That's kind of a 75-25 because that's about a 3-to-1. They were able to keep their budget very low. Some of them even took a little increase in the mill levy. And then here's this one that sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yeah. Look at the responsibility across the board in Seward County.
Yeah.
At Seward County Community College, at the City of Liberal, at the USD 480. And I'm going to tell you, I'm not just, you may be paying a little more on your taxes for them too. But they didn't up your mills 13, 14 mills. They kept the mill levy, and in the school district, they lowered it. The others kept it very, very close. The city, the exact same mill levy. Did they still get some more money? Yeah, I can live with that because if value's going up, then a percentage of that helps fund the other things that go up at the city. I get that. But what happened at the county? And I don't give out financial advice, and I'm not giving any now. I can just tell you, I think it would be smart to try to pay half of this and hope to God that BOTA will see that what they did was flawed and erase this thing and maybe get you a refund, and then they'll be forced to have to start looking at how they function with the proper size government.
Well, and the sad part is that refund is going to cost tens of thousands of dollars.
Tried to head that off.
Additional that shouldn't have been done to start with, the way I see it.
No. And that's why hopefully
One thing about it, we are making history here. I don't know of any other county that had to, probably had to refund their taxpayers after they overcharged them. If that happens, I'm not saying it will, but there's a possibility that it might. And gosh, and it all could have been avoided with a little discussion.
and I answer this question, and then we'll get you to your weather report. But Tiffany's asking, I'd be interested to know what benefits the city employees have and cost compared to the county. Did they even look at comparing the different plans? Thank you for having Conestoga on and clearing things up for us. I can tell you that Carolyn Huddleston did that. Carolyn Huddleston got the public records from the city and from the county and from other counties to compare for you. It's not even close. It's not even close. Seward is well above where other people are offering, and especially right here. The school district doesn't have anything close to this. The city doesn't have anything close to this. The college has nothing close to this. This is way out there. It's not, well, it's slightly different. No, you're talking a big, big difference. And now sometimes they'll say, well, we have more people on this risk here, this benefit plan there because of the job they do and this and that. That's why we compared it and looked at it with Barton County, with Ford County.
Comparable counties.
Yeah. Same kind of structure, same kind of makeup, same kind of income as far as a county, what a county brings in. And Dodge City has a national beef, we have a national beef. You can look very close at those counties. It's not even close. And I've got a stack of documents. Maybe on Monday, I'll dig those comparisons out and show them to you, so you
haven't
can
got
see.
anything to do this weekend. You're just looking for something to do.
Yeah.
Be quiet.
But that's been done on your behalf by citizens, and I just want to say thank you to those citizens willing to do that kind of research. It takes time, and citizens that care have done that work.
Now we got some folks that's not even in the county looking into this pretty seriously.
Oh, yeah. And they've run their numbers, they've researched, so, and that stuff's available on the website, but I just wonder how many other people are doing open records requests to get information out of this transparent organization that we've got. And the only way to get it is that you have to go through there or show up to one of their meetings, because they won't talk or quote or discuss or even come look at data that maybe they could have seen beforehand to say, that's how we're spending ourselves into oblivion? Yeah. That's how you're spending yourself into oblivion. But if you're not willing to look at it, you're going to keep voting for spinning us into oblivion and think that you can just give them another tax increase and give the staff another tax increase, when what you need to be looking at, we're spending way too much. Just facts.
There you go. Yeah.
No matter how much, even with this massive tax increase, they're going to blow through more reserves because they refuse to look at the spending side. They will not do it. And you can hear them. Oh, our employees and our benefits, and you're wanting to take their benefits. No, we're wanting to keep the county solvent. That's
CFO time.
It's way past time. But you heard, we played the audio clip for you. Scott at the meeting said, you want to know why we don't have a CFO? Take the opinion of the board. And that's why we don't have a CFO. So just remember that. Just remember that.
Yeah, but why is the reasoning? What is the reason that you don't want one? You don't think you need one? That's the more important part. We don't have one because that's the opinion of the board. Well, let's get down to what that opinion is. Why don't you need one? What makes you think that everything's so wonderful that, you don't need one? Rick Madden told me the other night that, it appeared that their accounting wasn't any better than a high school accounting class. And that's pretty sad for a citizen to tell you that, but, I would say an upgrade and thing that would change that sufficiently and quickly would be to find somebody to become this chief financial officer and begin to get some of this straightened out. And it's not going to happen overnight, but what better thing than not an advisor. An advisor just tells you, looks like you ought to do this, or look like you ought to do that, or I'd suggest you do this, I'd suggest you do that. A CFO will look into the numbers, and they'll decide the best option or a couple options. There can be choices, but, I think it's just, I think it's really, that should be top priority. And if that's the opinion of the board, that we don't need one, don't think it's necessary, well, citizens might decide that we need somebody with a different opinion. But that's just my opinion.
But if they're not willing to look at the expense side at all, and they think a cut is reducing the increase, we're in deep trouble.
Well, that's federal government thinking.
Well, all I can tell you is I believe next week we will be able to share with you some data on the deficit spending, the historic deficit spending under this current commission, and you can make the call. We'll share it with you next week. We don't want to hedge into your weekend without giving you your squeaky clean car wash weather report. Today's going to be sunny with a high near 67. North-northwest wind 5 to 10 miles per hour, becoming light and variable in the afternoon. Tonight, mostly cloudy with it gradually becoming clear with a low around 39 degrees. South-southwest wind 5 to 10 miles per hour, becoming west-northwest after midnight. Saturday is going to be sunny with a high near 60. Breezy with a north wind 16 to 24 miles per hour with gusts as high as 36 miles per hour. Saturday night, partly cloudy with a low around 26. North wind 8 to 16 miles per hour.
Ooh.
Sunny on Sunday with a high near 45. That's the high.
Sunny.
45.
Don't forget the sunny part.
Yeah. Sunny and 45 is terrible. North wind 7 to 13 miles per hour. Sunday night, mostly clear with a low around 19.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
Goodness. Monday, 59 for your high. Veterans Day Tuesday, 73 for your high. Wednesday, 69, and Thursday, 70. So it is going to be a painfully cold weekend, but it gets better next week.
There you go. Things are going to get better. Just remember that.
And that's the news and views you can use on the High Plains, Friday, November 7th, 2025. We'll be back with you. I'll be back with you tonight after the ball game and let you know how the Redskins did in this second round playoff game right out here at Redskin Field. And we'll be back with you together at 7:30 on Monday morning to let you know how everything goes over the weekend. Until then, this Earl with the Leader in Times with Jim Rice saying when you live in Liberal
Or Marshall, Texas.
there's no place like home. Have a great day, everybody.